Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to this new session of Agency School, in which I want to talk about inventing portfolio. How to present a portfolio when you don't have a portfolio. So, what's the biggest fear most students have when they go on a client call or meeting? So, I'm saying this from my experience talking to all my students who start in agency, who start their consultancy. One of the biggest fear, and they keep asking me this, Pulkit, what will happen if a client asks me for my portfolio? They don't have a portfolio. It really scares them a lot, and the fear of being asked to show a portfolio and work samples when they have none. The feeling is both terrifying and paralyzing. And it paralyzes them because it prevents them to take an action. It really scares them that I'm not a consultant yet. I haven't worked on any project. How can I go on a call and pretend that I have done a lot of work when I haven't done any? So with this video, let's address that and tackle the portfolio roadblock. And that's what we will do in this training, so that you can go on each call or meeting with confidence and convert the client even if you don't have a portfolio. If you think that's not possible, I'll prove you wrong with this video. It is possible. So I'll give you very simple strategies, three simple strategies. That is, you can borrow portfolio, you can invent portfolio, or you can cover up. So borrowing portfolio I've already covered, but I will still cover it again. And second one is invent, and third is cover up. So first is borrow. How you can borrow a portfolio from a freelancer. So in this strategy, it's quite simple. So what you do is you contact freelancers who have done the work. For example, if you're pitching a client web development service, in that case you find few freelancers who have built some websites and ask them for portfolio, and you only contact freelancers whose work you really like, who are doing some really premium work for which you think you can charge a lot of money. So you contact such freelancers and ask them to let them him or her use your work in exchange of more work. Just tell them that, see, I'm working in the fashion vertical, and I see that you have done a lot of websites in fashion. So if you can explain me what work you have done, because I have access to people in fashion, I'll pitch your services, and if I get the work, I'll hand that work to you. And what I need from you, I'll do all the pitching, I'll do all the hard work. You just need to give me your pricing and your portfolio, the things that I can show to a client that we have done. And in most cases, all the freelancers are happy to let you use their work, because most freelancers, an average freelancer, they know how to build a website, they know how to do social media or manage Instagram page, but what they don't know is how to get bigger clients. And that's what you know because of this training. The strategies that you're learning in this training, you know sales, you know how to generate leads, you know how to convert a client, how to charge a premium, but you don't have a portfolio, and it's something they have. So you just contact them, and I have worked with dozens and dozens of freelancers, including graphic designers in India and abroad, copywriters in India and abroad, photographers in India, in Mumbai, in Delhi, all over the places. I've worked with video editors as freelancers. I've worked with Facebook marketers. I've worked with web developers, of course, a lot of web developers. I've worked with them as on freelancing basis. So I have worked with a lot of freelancers, and I keep borrowing more and more work and using their work. The freelancers I work with, I use their work to get more work to the freelancers, and I keep my profit whenever I can get a project using their work. So even though the strategy is very simple, but there are a few things that you need to take care of. For example, you can do it before or after you have a client who is interested in discussing the project. There are times when I go on a call prepared, and there are instances when I don't have a portfolio when I'm on the call. So what I'm saying is that what happens, you have two options. Either you find freelancers that you like. I find freelancers on Instagram, on Marvel app, on anywhere I can find. I'll find them anywhere. So if I like them, I'll message them and tell them that I really like your work, which I mostly do. If I admire someone's work, I ask them. Even if I know that I cannot afford them, but I still ask them for a quote, so that I know what the market pricing is for such premium work that these guys are doing. For example, if I find a client who is working for a really big hotel and their work is outstanding, I'll contact them, I'll admire their work, and ask them, how much did you typically charge? They might give me an hourly rate of $150 an hour, which I of course cannot afford, but at least I know that the highest I can go if I want to pitch such a, in other words, if I have a client who's ready to pay $150 per hour work, I have someone whom I know can work with me, and I can then use their work to get bigger clients and work on bigger projects. So there are instances when I contact freelancers when I don't have a project, and there are instances when I contact freelancers after I have a project, I have a lead, I contact them later. But in most cases, in the ideal case scenario, I suggest that you have your resources built, resource pipeline built in advance. That is, find freelancers you think you might need and take rough estimates in advance. Look at their work to ensure they are really good. So what you do is you find and contact freelancers in advance instead of waiting for that only after you have a project you will contact freelancers. For example, if in fashion, I know that the kind of people that are relevant for my industry, or talking about hospitality or e-commerce or softwares, any vertical that I'm working in, I know what kind of resources can work on projects like these. For example, I know that I might need copywriters, fashion copywriters. So if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of fashion copywriters on my LinkedIn. There are a lot of web developers on my LinkedIn. There are a lot of textile designers on my LinkedIn. The designers who create collections for my clients, I have such people on my LinkedIn. I have a lot of web developers on my LinkedIn. So I contact and add people to my network irrespective of whether I need them now, just to have a resource pool so that the moment I need anyone. I also have packagers, the people who package the products, by the way. I also have product photographers on my LinkedIn. Of course, I have clients as well, but as part of the team that I know, I try to have my resources ready in advance. I know a lot of designers that I've found on Instagram that I know I have them in my inbox, or I'm following them, that anytime I need someone who is an e-commerce UI specialist, I know a girl who is in Europe, I can work with her. If a client can pay a price for her, I can engage her definitely. She's really good. And all these people that I have added to my network on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever possible, not just on LinkedIn, I add them everywhere. Even on Marvel app. So Marvel app is a application I use to design UIs, and I've found that Marvel app has a marketplace section where a lot of people who use Marvel app, they submit their designs there. I found a guy who is based in Hyderabad who works for Microsoft. I found him through Marvel app. The UIs that he submitted to Marvel app, I found him. I saw his work on Instagram. From there, I found that he has a blog. I loved his work. I just dropped him an email and added him to my network. So I know that if I need someone who has built a media player, a software, he has worked on the Windows Media Player project, and he has a lot of great UI works as far as software UI's front end is concerned, and he can do some extensive user study. If you want to do a documentation of user study, I have a guy who can do that. I have seen all his work. So I, on an everyday basis, I keep asking people, what do you do? For example, if I go to a meeting, and if I meeting with a client and I see that a client is working with another freelancer who is again a video editor who's based in Mumbai, I won't hesitate in talking to that girl and asking her to show me her video work. And if I like her work, I'll contact her again on LinkedIn. I might add her and giving reference that we this is how we connected, and I loved your work, and if you do you mind giving me your rates. So the point is that I keep looking for gems all the time, the people, the resources I can add based on the industries I'm working in. So the idea here is that you have to have your network of freelancers, not companies, ready in advance, irrespective whether or not you have your project. So you should know that you have photographers, you have graphic designers, you have copywriters, whatever you might need, you have them in advance. The moment you have a client, you can talk with confidence, because we have seen their work, that we can do outstanding work for you. This will give you confidence that you can deliver, because you have a team at your back who can deliver. And it makes you more confident when you go on a sales call. And yes, when you go on a sales call, you go prepared with their sample work. You show the sample work to them that this is what we have done. So after you have clients' interest, contact them to us for sample work. So what I do is, and another thing to consider is that when you find someone, don't if you know that their work is good. For example, if you've seen their work on Instagram, on Behance or Dribble, or you've seen one of the accounts they're managing on social media, you know that this girl is taking care of the social media and the Instagram account of a top restaurant in your city, and you've seen her work. In that case, don't bother by asking her to show her work separately. Just be sure, just ask her, have a candid call with her, asking her how did you do it, and don't take too much time upfront when you don't have a project. Just ask for the rates. Just admire that. Oh, I loved your work, and what have you done in this work? It's important for you to know, because someone might tell you that they've built a website, but if you ask them more questions that what exactly I've done in the project when you're building the website, they might tell you I've just done testing, or they might tell you that I've done the logo, they might tell you that I've just done the front end development, or they might tell you that I just did the integration, and they will still say that we have done this project. So just make sure that you ask them that what exactly did you do in this project, so that you know for sure what was the scope of their work. But after you know that, and you know about their pricing, what is that they charge them for that work, you at least know the base pricing. But after you have the project, then have a detailed call with them, explaining them the lead you have, the client's requirement, and also ask them what questions do you need. That's very, very important. The freelancers from whom you're borrowing the portfolio, tell them in advance that I have a client who is looking for this and this work. I'm going to pitch your work to them. Let me know if you have any specific questions that you want me to ask them, because I'm going to come back to you and get an estimate from you, because I want you to work on this project. So whatever estimate they give you, you just add your margin and pitch to the client. But make sure that when you are borrowing someone's work, you check for the availability, you talk to them, you ask them to help you list down good questions that you can ask them, to give them an accurate estimate. Keep them in the loop of the sales cycle when you're pitching to the client, because it might happen that they were available then when you contact them earlier, but now they are not even available. So make sure that you have these guys in the loop. So you have them in your network in advance, you have them in your resource pool. The moment you get a lead, someone who is interested in engaging with you, go back to them, start the conversation again, ask them to explain their work, send them more relevant work samples, because they might have done more work in the last few months, and go on the call prepared and take the help, because they will help you in every way possible, because they also want the project as much as you. So, but I can find people in my industry, the freelancers who respond have worked in every industry except mine. So that happens with many students who tell me that, Pulkit, I tried posting on Freelancer, Upwork, all the places, but I cannot find someone who has done a lot of work in software. I find people who have worked in fitness, I've found people who have worked in e-commerce, but I cannot find someone who has worked in software. So it happens all the time. It's perfectly fine, and it doesn't matter. If you cannot find people, freelancers in your industries immediately, you eventually will if you keep on trying, because it does take time. No worries, take your time. If the freelancer who has sent you their work is not in the vertical that you want, but if the work is awesome, if it's compelling, it doesn't matter if it's not of the industry. For example, if you want the client, if you want to work with a freelancer who has done a lot of work in fashion, but the guy you have contacted has done a lot of work in food and luxury hotels, it is still okay. Just still ask them to send you their work, because at least you have something to talk about to their client. And I'll show you how you can interrelate these industries while pitching to a client. But just know that the client wants to know that you understand the dynamics of their industry, problems, needs, and desires they have. And and which is what I've covered in the week one training when I make you do the industry research. So if the client knows that you can talk their language, you have done your homework, you know about their problems, needs, and desires, and you're promising them a specific outcome, which is exactly what their problem is, that is more sales and more revenue. Even if you don't, if you have compelling work in the industry, most people will still hire you, even if you don't have worked, if you haven't worked in the industry. So what I'm saying is that if you have a client who has a hotel, and you contact them, and they see that you have done a lot of work in fashion, and you understand the dynamics of the hotel industry, and they know that you're very experienced, you're very, very interested in the hotel vertical, they might still give you benefit of doubt and hire you. It happens all the time. With me, I have, the moment I'm pitching I've pitched a lot of clients. It's just saying that I haven't worked in industry, but I've done a lot of work in fashion. Look at my work. This is what I've done. This is what I've accomplished in fashion, and I'm really good at understanding any industry and in helping my clients give results, because the fundamentals of marketing and sales are same across all industries. Every industry has consumers. Every industry has buyer as a seller, and the seller sells to a buyer based on the same problem, needs, and desires they have, and all humans are driven by same emotions. So it's not very hard actually to pitch a client with a different industry. It's not ideal. It takes more efforts. It requires more convincing. You need to be lucky as well. But I have converted so many cross-industry clients using my fashion portfolio. For example, when we started working in the hospitality vertical, I showed my portfolio of fashion all the time, and always told them how hospitality and how hotel industry is so similar to the fashion industry, and what made me interested in the hotel industry after working in fashion. And I talk about the common clients who were in the hotel industry and they entered the fashion industry. So I try to build a link between the industry, in their industry in mind, if I haven't worked in their industry. So places you can go to hire freelancers, there are many. You can go to Upwork, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Freelancer. I've used Just Dial and Quicker. I've hired a couple of freelancers using Quicker, not Just Dial, but I'm sure there has to be a way you can do job posting on Just Dial. But Quicker I have used. Upwork I use all the time. Let me show you in fact how my Upwork profile looks like, the people I have hired. So if I switch to my client profile, and look at the contracts I have Katie, I have Jelena, she's a graphic designer, and they have to be more people. Let me show you, how can I find them? My freelancers. So the people I've hired Katie, who's a copywriter, Jelena, I've hired Punit. So Punit is the guy who works from Rajasthan. So anytime I need someone a specialist server guy who can manage my client server, and this guy is the rescue guy. Because I don't have an in-house server admin person, because my clients really hire me to manage their server, but I have Punit, and he's available most of the time. That anytime something goes wrong with the server, I have Punit the backup. I just ping him on Skype. He's very responsive, and he just resolves all the server issues of my clients, if ever. So I have Punit. I strictly work with him via Upwork. Jelena, again, she's from Serbia. I hired her to do one of my brand logos for fashion retail, and then I hired her for several other projects. This is the profile of German, and German actually this is German's girlfriend and now wife, but I hired German through a work, and he's the guy I've been working with him for the last 3-4 years. If you've seen other videos, you'd know about him. And I found him through Upwork, and Chetna again for copywriting work. So I keep looking for people hiring people through Upwork. So Milos is a developer from Serbia. I did not have particularly good experience with him, but let me also show you some of the people I know on LinkedIn, because I keep searching for people. For example, so you see, hi Penny, we connected on Upwork in November 2016. So any moment I find a client through Upwork. So this woman Penny contacted me a few years ago, 2016, on Upwork, because she wanted business consulting for a fashion startup she was working on. I added her then, and she has accepted my request now. I got a notification recently. So I was talking about copywriters. So I have so many copywriters in my account. So Devika, this lady, she's a fashion copywriter, has worked with some big fashion magazines, on a big community, Facebook community, who wears what. I found her through LinkedIn. Niharika, she's again is a copywriter. I hired her through LinkedIn. Molly, so many people that copywriters that I have found through LinkedIn. Rashi Kaur, so many people, and let me think of more examples. In fact, let me show you how do I start my conversation. For example, so I contacted Devika saying, "Hi Devika, hope you're doing well. One of my clients who is based in Dubai is looking for a fashion copywriter. This requirement is urgent. Please let me know as soon as you can whether you're available to take the project." Not ideal, because I have older messages with him. So I want to show you my first message. So it's a very straightforward message. It worked. And as you know, I have found Luna as well. So we met on Twitter, then we continued conversation on LinkedIn. So what I want to say is that I use LinkedIn all the time to find people, and maybe in fact I'm going in detail for nothing, because I'm going to cover this in a dedicated module. So what I want to say is that I use Upwork, LinkedIn, Freelancer, Just Dial, Quicker, and so many other platforms, including Behance, Dribble for graphic designers, and so many other websites. So I'll cover this in detail in a dedicated video about hiring, how I hire people. I'll show you my first pitches, how I approach these people, and how do I convince them to work with me. Because often because my intent always is to work with the best people, even if I can't afford them. So often I have to put in efforts in convincing them to work with me, because it's not that everyone is available. Most good designers, most good copywriters, most of the good programmers, the cream, I want to work with the cream, and cream already has a lot of work. So I have to compete as a client to hire them. I have to convince them that if you work with me, this is what you get. So I have to sell my company to them. So this is what I want to cover in a dedicated module about hiring, how to hire the best team so that you can work with the best client and you can charge them the best buck. That's how it works. So a word of caution before we go to the next strategy, that don't borrow a portfolio from other agencies or companies. Only works with freelancers. It's very tempting to work with local companies, smaller agencies, but what happens is that if you work with agencies, smaller companies like you, if you want to collaborate with them, the downside is that number one, they'll ask you for a bigger cut. They'll ask you that, Pulkit, okay, we'll take the project, but we'll pay you 80%. They'll eat all your commission, your profit, because they have bigger overhead costs. They have rented space, they have electricity bill, all of that. So they cannot work on narrow margins. Freelancers, on the other hand, since they're working alone, they have better margins. So it's a win-win situation for both freelancer and you. When you work with agencies like you, if you try to collaborate with them, most likely they'll ask you uh, for a 70% cut, 60% cut, or 80% cut. That you'll keep the 20%, we'll take the 80%, and we'll take care of the client communication, and you don't have to worry about it. And the chances are they are bigger team, they'll not keep you involved in the project. And in most cases when I've hired an agency, I've lost the client to the agency, because the client then gets everything from the vendor, the agency. If you let them interact directly, most likely you lose the client. Until you're okay losing the client, if it's not something you want to do, because there are instances when I have a client who's pain in mass. In that case, I'll let the client go to another agency, a freelancer who can take care of the client better than me. So there are instances when I let the client go. But most of my dearest clients, until I see a clear value in outsourcing the project to an external agency, especially if I don't have the capability to do the project in-house, I do not work with agencies. And I wouldn't recommend you to work with agencies. I would recommend working with freelancers who are doing exceptional work, because that way you can have better profit margins. So let's talk about inventing portfolio. The second strategy is that you can invent portfolio. So the truth is that you don't need a client to create a portfolio. In fact, you can make a better portfolio without a client. Because what happens is that the way we look at portfolio is that we can only have a portfolio if we have a client. So most of my students, I've seen my students and people waiting for having a client, and they tell me that I don't. So if you ask them that it's been 1 year that you've been working in this industry, do you have a portfolio? So they tell you that I did not manage to close many projects, so I don't have much work to show you, which is really absurd, which doesn't make sense to me, because I know for a fact that most good consultants, most good freelancers, people have a portfolio because they are not dependent on their clients. If they don't have a portfolio, they'll invent one. So if you don't have any work, if you have no client who has hired you, you have all the time in the world, you can build a portfolio for yourself. So let's look at a few examples just to be clear what I mean. If you are a programmer, you can contribute to sites like Top Coder, and there's so many websites where you can go and contribute by creating a code for free code for other companies, and you get certification. So that way you work. So you join a community that is working on a project. There is a project manager who will assign you a module that this is what you have to code, and then you have to work with their team. So you don't get paid for it, or even if you get paid, they pay very little. But the project that you get, so you do work with a team, you get and you get the experience of working on a project that you can show to a client later that this project I have built, and it becomes a portfolio. So in a way, you are inventing your portfolio as a programmer. Likewise, you can build a mobile application. If you're an Android developer, you don't need to wait for a client to hire you to build a mobile application. You can just think of a good idea and build something for yourself. Who knows? Maybe it becomes your startup later. But the point is that it doesn't make sense actually to wait for a client to start building your first mobile application, your first website, your first software. You can start building it now. Just start small. I'm also saying this from a first-hand experience. When a couple of years ago I started learning Ruby on Rails, when I was learning programming, it didn't take me more than a month to build my first application, which was a video library software in which I built the UIs. I did the programming by just following the steps of a tutorial on YouTube, which just told everything step by step. Now write this code, this line. Now open the syntax, close the syntax, and create this file there. And this is how you execute the code. I don't recall now because it's out of my practice now, but I almost built a video library project just following the steps, exactly what he was doing in the video. I was doing exactly that. I did it a few times, and the guy was also providing me support and helping me troubleshoot with many areas, and he had all the code on GitHub. So I could download the code from GitHub and compare the code with mine wherever my code wasn't working. I could copy paste the code from GitHub and see my code working. So it took me a month to, as a non-programmer, someone who was shit scared of programming, to build a project that I could show to a client if I was pitching them Ruby on Rails service. So what I'm saying is that I did not wait for a client to hire me for Ruby on Rails. I was learning. I would just build a Ruby on Rails app through a free YouTube tutorial, and it was very easy to follow, and I learned Ruby on Rails, and I could have shown to a client and got more ROR Ruby on Rails project work for me if I wanted to. I did not have time, and I couldn't manage the work, so I had to drop the idea of becoming a programmer. But that did not stop me. I already started with a portfolio. The same thing goes with the UI designer. If you're a UI designer, if you want to build mobile applications, there are so many tutorials on YouTube. Just watch a tutorial and start designing UIs, and you'll have a portfolio to show you to your clients. So you don't need to wait for a client to hire you for UI work to build a mobile application. Only then you'll be able to do something for them. So if you're a graphic designer, you can participate in contests such as 99 Designs. The worst case will be that you lose the contest because there are so many other contestants. But from there, if you apply to a contest and create few logos for the client to win that contest, the worst case scenario is that you'll not get hired, but still have few logos that you can put in your portfolio. So again, you're being proactive instead of waiting for a client to hire you. You're inventing your portfolio in advance. If you're a writer, you can create a personal blog and write pieces relevant to your target audience. For example, if you're pitching to fashion e-commerce stores, you can write few pieces of blog talking about the recent purchases. So if you want to show, if you're a copywriter, just to explain what I just said, if you are a fashion copywriter and you want to work with e-commerce retailers to write their product descriptions, you don't need a client to write product descriptions. You can just create a blog which is absolutely free. You can create a WordPress blog or a blogspot or even an Instagram. Just write good captions, put a product that you just recently purchased, take a good picture and write a beautiful caption using the best language you can think of that is as good as what a Net-a-Porter would write. How would Net-a-Porter or Modcloth would describe the product. These are the market leaders when it comes to benchmarks that most companies look at when it comes to writing product descriptions. So write some exceptional product descriptions on your blog or on your Instagram and show that to your clients and show them that this is what I wrote and this is how I wrote and this is why I wrote like this. These are adjectives I use. Just explain your work, explain why did you use that language, and the client will be impressed. The client has no reason to not hire you based on if they like your blog post or if they like your Instagram post. They will hire you because they know that this work is from you. So it is not required that if you want to work as a fashion copywriter, you only can show a client portfolio. You can do that on your blog, but only if you consider your blog or your Instagram as your canvas, as your portfolio. Likewise, if you're a social media marketer, you could create a separate Instagram account and show it as your work. It happens all the time when we hire. Recently, I was taking interviews for social media managers. Each time a candidate walked in, I asked them to show me their Instagram page. And it was very obvious a guy who couldn't take care of his Instagram page, who wasn't posting stories, who wasn't active on their Instagram, or who was posting ugly pictures or captions with grammatical errors in their personal Instagram account. I don't expect the same guy to do an exceptional job for my client. So it's very, very important. And I come across Instagram marketers who have interest-based social media profiles that they own, they have built from scratch, and they have 50,000 followers and they have put some exceptional content and they make money from those Instagram pages for promoting other brands and the other people on the Instagram page. So it's a source of income for them, and that's also a portfolio for them. So they show me that there was a funny page, I'm not able to think right now. something like samosa. Let me show you if I can find it right now. It was a very good example of samosa. So it will take me some time to find that profile. So the guy's Instagram page. So he owned an Instagram page. It was Punjabi guy, and he owned something Instagram page which was something like chutney and samosa, something like that. And he had 100,000 followers on that page, and he posted a lot of content. So when he showed us the page, and he said that I'm already making money through this, but I want to work with an agency, especially your agency, because I like the work that you do. We were really impressed when we look at the page he owned, even though his aesthetics were quite poor, but the rest of the work, we knew that he knew how to build a community, a small Instagram page, how to increase followers, how to gain influence, how to gain followers. He knew that game. So he showed one of his Instagram page as a portfolio, which was not a client work, which was his personal page, not his personal account. It was a separate Instagram account he owned. Like I said, chutney and samosa, something like that. It had a very weird name. So the example is, if you're a Facebook paid ads guy, if you have a credit card, you can set up a dropshipping store and run a $100 ad and see what kind of ROI you can achieve to sell AliExpress products. Or you can offer free sale. You can offer your services to someone you know. For example, if you have someone who is a doctor in your family, your uncle, you can contact him and just offer him to run Facebook paid ads using $100, and just take a snapshot of that and see what you can achieve for your uncle in $100, and explain that as your portfolio to your clients. And of course, you can do the same with a dropshipping store, but it's a different ball game altogether, because building a dropshipping store it does have a learning curve of its own. And if you're a UI designer, you can redesign UIs of popular brands and illustrate how you would approach this shopping user experience. A good example of this is this website. So Alexander Wang redesign concept. So Alexander Wang is a very famous designer. So I had a client who contacted me because I wrote about Alexander Wang's UIs, and this client, so the client talking about is BankCube. It is street level based in Southeast Asia. So this guy contacted me with this website, Alexander Wang, and he showed me this article that, Pulkit, I want my website to be like this. And this is not Alexander Wang's original design. The original design is this. So this is what the original website looks like. But this guy, Jose Solano, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but this guy created this project proactively, saying that if he was to design Alexander Wang's website, this is how he would design the website. And he designed a beautiful e-commerce website, a beautiful mobile application design, without actually working for Alexander Wang. And this is a really famous project, has 240 comments, and has 48,755 views and so many likes and comments. So if this guy, I think I did contact this guy. It won't be very hard to find this guy. I think he's the same guy who said that he charges $1 an hour. So here's a triple profile. So what I'm saying is you can find this guy on LinkedIn or wherever, and you can ask for his work. So this is a very good example of where are we? So this project is a very good example of how you can be proactive. So you can do the same for if you are, let's say, if you are a web development company, you might say that if we were to to redesign the Coca-Cola website, a Coca-Cola's logo, you can show that I wouldn't use this font. This is how a Coca-Cola logo should look like in 2018. And their website, this is how their website should look like now. And then you explain why you think it should be that way. Explanation is as important as the design itself. Telling people why did you design the website, or why you did the way it is, you've done it. So explanation is very, very important. This guy went the distance. He even has a video explaining the concept, how he would have everything on the website, how everything would work. So you can be proactive and invent your portfolio as a UI designer, and don't have to wait for a client to hire you to do work like this. It will take you a month. It might take you a month to build to design a website like this. But then if you can manage that, you will get clients who will go crazy, messaging you, wanting to work with you, because and you'll also, if you invent all this work and imagine you put this on Behance or on Instagram, you'll get a lot of exposure and credibility for the work you do. So it makes you a proactive person. All you have to do is think creatively, and you'll be able to come up with at least a dozen ways to invent your portfolio. As a marketer, as a designer, whatever, you can do that. And talking about myself, I use my website blog, I Love Fashion Tale blog. I use it as a portfolio all the time, because my clients think that they read my articles, they know my knowledge, they know my expertise, they write it all the time that, Pulkit, I know you're a very knowledgeable guy, because they've read one of my articles or my ebook. So I use that as my portfolio. So you have to create something outstanding for yourself and share it on your blog, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Again, you don't need a client to produce a portfolio. You need an intention. If you have the intention, you can create a portfolio. If you start considering your blog, Instagram, LinkedIn as your canvas.